Hello, everybody. My name is Daryl Triplett, and I will be your instructor for this course. The course that we will be covering today is Administration and Onboarding. Now, you will see the course outlined as G11 Security, but this will be a template for most security companies in the United States of America. Okay, so without any further ado, we will go ahead and get started. Administrations. Now, like I said before, this is administrations that's related to G11 security, but it's sort of a blanketed coverage for everyone. Okay. Of course, the first thing that we do here when we do our training staff and stuff like that is we like to welcome the new employee to the system. We like to welcome them to our training academy and things like that. Your path to a successful career in security. Okay. All right. So the first day of class, when you arrive at our training academy or at our facilities or anything like that. Now, this is a little small for me, so I'll be bending down just to see this just a little bit here. Maybe I could bring this up here. Let me see. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. So we'll make this just a little big here. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is be on time. All right. That's our first rule of anything that we're doing in the security related field is being on time, because punctuality is a must. If we say we're going to have a guard there at a certain time, and then we don't have a guard there at a certain time, and if something happens, then we become, as the company, liable for that. And your company will be liable for that. Okay. So arrive on property on time. And when you get to like your securities, training facilities and stuff like that, be prepared for class. All right. No talking and horse playing in class. Believe me, that is a pet peeve of ours because we're here for serious business. Take notes. All right. Bring a notebook and a notepad with you. First off, so whether you're in a training class or whether you are meeting with a client potentially or whatever, always bring a pen and pad with you. It shows that you're serious. It shows that you're ready to work. Wear your uniform correctly at all times. Okay. At all times when you're in our training facility, you have to have your uniform, or when you're in our uniform period, you have to have your uniform on correctly. You can't wear house shoes with our uniforms. You can't be wearing Uggs with our uniforms and stuff like that. You have to have the correct, proper uniform on at all times when you're in your security uniforms. Okay, so on here, so will be sort of a virtual thing. So locating your bathroom, you can sort of pause the video at any time, take a quick bathroom break and come back. But when you're in the academy, ask the instructors, or your training facility, ask your instructors where your bathroom facilities is in case you have to go relieve yourself, and then quietly get up and do so and come right back. We'll get a break every 15 minutes, we'll get a break every hour for 15 minutes. And so what we usually do, we go ahead and push through it. We'll take a 15-minute break or whatever. And then that instructor of that class should assign a timekeeper. What I usually do is assign a timekeeper for every 15 minutes. Now, I know on the slides it says every half an hour you get a 15-minute break, but in reality, it's usually more like an hour, and then we get a 15-minute break. Okay. Show the class the secret knock. So on our classes, when someone walks into the classroom, be it a guest or another, it could be a secretary, it could be another officer, something like that. If they don't use a secret knock, everyone stands at attention. Okay. It's a form of discipline. It's a form of show of respect. So everyone comes to attention. They jump up, they come to attention. And then it's up to that classroom instructor to tell them at ease or whatever. So it's really, really super duper cool to see something like that happen. And like I said, we do it to our secretaries all the time. They come in, they open the door to the class, and before you know it, everybody's jumping to attention. They're like, what just happened here? Right? Okay. Keeping a clean classroom is paramount. We have to keep our classrooms clean. So when I tell you no eating in the classrooms, that is not prohibited. We have a break area for that. If you want to, when you take your lunch break, if you wish to stay on the facilities and have your lunch, then you can have your lunch in the break room. But keeping our classroom and our facility clean at all time is imperative. What to expect to learn. So at any security academy, you're going to want to expect to learn something. And one of the things that is a big deal that we get in trouble with all the time is legal aspects of security, what you can do and what you cannot do. It's a very big deal in security. There have been plenty of good security officers who've gotten themselves in a world of trouble because they thought they were doing what was right and it turns out to be wrong what they were doing. And then now all of a sudden, these security officers are in a lot of legal trouble. Conflict resolution and de-escalation techniques is another big one. We want to certify and teach all of our guards conflict resolution and de-escalation because our job as security officers is not to be there fighting with folks. Our job is to de-escalate situations and, if need be, call the police. Okay. And to figure out some type of conflict resolution if we at all possibly can. Emergency response procedures and protocols. So every site that your company takes on should have a set of post orders in them. And in that post orders should cover emergency response and procedures and protocols. So when you're on site and something happens, you should have a 3-ring binder there that you can open up, flip to a certain section, fire alarms or whatever, and it will give you the A, B, C, D, E, F, Gs on fire alarms, or what to do if a hostile person comes in, or what to do if a client is unsatisfied. So it should be able to give you that information right there. Use of force and ethical considerations. So with use of force, we're always going to err on the side of a defensive tactic, right? We never really, as security, we never want to be the aggressors because usually, not unless it's extreme circumstances, we don't have to be the aggressor. So we want to concentrate on, when you're talking about use of force, on the defensive. And then also when we're using those use of forces and things of that nature, we want to always maintain ethics and to have that to be a foremost consideration on our minds when we're using any type of force at all. All right. Report writing and documentation. That is probably going to be one of the biggest parts of your job during security and even in law enforcement, period. Report writing, taking reports, taking incident reports, all things of that nature is part of the job with this line of work. It just is what it is. Customer service skills and security. Customer service skills has to be paramount because your client, our client, is paying you to be a frontline representative of their organization, whether it's at 3 o'clock in the morning or whether it's at 8 o'clock in the morning, hosting a desk at a busy lobby. They're paying you to be the face of their organization. So our customer service skills has to be on point at all given times. I understand that sometimes you may get customers who may push your buttons and things like that, but we always have to maintain a certain level of professionalism. What is expected of you? The first thing that any company is going to expect of you is commitment to training, because we don't go anywhere in this line of work without some type of formal training. Any company who just hires you on and gives you a gun and badge, you could best believe they don't care about you. They're probably not a legitimate security company, and they're going to get you in a world of hurt as far as legal trouble, and you need to run fast and as far away from that company as you possibly can. They're no good. Real security companies are mandated by the states in just about all states out there, and they have a certain criteria that you have to follow. Adherence to ethicals and professional standards, we just talked about that. That is a must. If you're not adhering to ethical and professional standards, then that's not what our client is paying us for. So I'll guarantee you, whatever security company that you work for, when they got that contract, they did not get that contract because they went in there and said, hey, guess what? We're going to provide you a security officer that's unethical, and we're going to provide you a security officer that's not professional. All right. They said the total opposite of that. Our security officers are going to be ethical, and they're going to be very professional. All right. Physical fitness is the next one. All of our security officers has to be physically fit, because sometimes you may be walking up long flights of steps. You may be having to engage with helping clients take things out to their vehicles or load up trucks or whatever. You just never know what's going to go on in the daily life of a security officer. So being physically fit is a must. Punctuality and discipline, we talked about that a little bit before. Being punctual. If you're supposed to be on shift at 8 o'clock to relieve another security officer, first off, they've worked all night and they're ready to get off at 8 o'clock in the morning. They probably have childcare issues and stuff like that they have to go see about. So be respectful of that. And then secondly, if you're not there on time, if it's a cold start site and you're just showing up there at 8 o'clock, which cold start means, then if you don't get there till 8:30, and let's say glass gets broken or something like that at 8:30 or whatever, guess what happens then? Then the company becomes responsible for that, because the security officer was supposed to be there at 8 o'clock. And you don't want things like that to happen, because a lot of times what the security company will do is deduct it from the guard's check. Clear communication and teamwork is paramount. Now, a lot of our systems that we have available now, like our therm systems and stuff like that, makes communication a lot better from back in the day. So back in the day, we had a book that we used to have to pass on, and then each officer would read that book. Now, some companies still do it that way. Other companies have advanced to more modernized technology, like at G11. What we utilize is a system called Therms, and we create pass downs as soon as you log on to your app that's on your phone that you download, and then it will give you all the pass on information for that day, and then also your post orders and things like that are on it also. So a lot of companies have gotten away from the old method of doing it and sort of come around to the new method of doing it. Now, about the instructors here at G11 Security or at your security organization, the instructor should be experienced instructors with law enforcement background, security background. It's going to be a little hard to instruct individuals on this job if they have never worked in law enforcement or they don't have a security background. Accredited by the Georgia Board of Private Detectives and Security Agencies. So no matter where your security company is, make sure, and it's okay to ask for the instructor's certification. Hey, we want to make sure that who we're being taught by is a certified instructor and have been put through some type of rigorous testing by the state that which they're teaching in. Comprehensive curriculum that's tailored for industry standards. So a lot of the things that we have to do is we have to always go back and revitalize our curriculum, because things are forever changing. For example, we offer a scheduling course of how to read your schedules and stuff like that. And, 30 years ago, we did scheduling with a pencil and paper. We drew lines on it like a tic-tac-toe board, put names on there, and then we would erase names and schedules and stuff like that and put other names in there when officers couldn't make it and things like that. Well, we've gotten away from that, and we've come up with an automated system now, a new modernized technology system now to where it does pretty much everything for you, and it does a blast out to each of the officers once your schedules are done. So your curriculum always have to be flexible and changing. Um, Focus on practical skills and theological knowledge, and that, that sort of goes along of what we were talking about before, that when you're practicing a particular set of skills like law enforcement, security officers, first aid, stuff like that, it has to be up to date and modernized. Now, the Georgia State Board requires a couple of things if for the instructors. These are for the instructors. And one, and I can tell you about Georgia because that's where we're at here. You have to have a 2 years in law enforcement experience and or a degree in criminal justice. Okay. Then each of them has to take a license examination to pass on to become a certified instructor. ADA accommodations available for exams. The state offers, so if you're impaired or something like that, you can still take your exams. And renewal or reinstatements of policies. Now, I want to talk about this for just a second. Renewals and reinstatements of policies. So your renewals, you'll have to renew, each instructor will have to renew every few years their certifications and stuff like that, with a fresh look at new policies and stuff like that, state mandated things that may have changed because your board will regulate different things and change over the years. Okay. So as a security officer newly coming to an organization, you'll find out that that organization is going to become very friendly with you. In other words, we're going to know a bit more about you than most jobs because we are entrusting you to protect sometimes billions and billions worth of dollars of merchandise. You know, heaven forbid you're at a federal contract at NASA or something like that, and we don't know the first thing about you. So some of these questions that we ask, we're going to dig and vet a little bit into your background. So understand that. And it's not just a one-time thing, it's an ongoing thing. Okay. So when your number comes up, you may have to go through the vetting process all over again. Don't get upset with that. That is a system of checks and balances that is the reason why our clients can rely on us. Okay. So one of the things is that, so the officer's name, well, your legal government name, we need to know for obvious reasons. If you're married or get a divorce and revert back to your old name, that needs to be updated in the system also. Your state issued ID will be asked. Your employee number will be tagged to you, and it will follow your career path as a security officer as you go through your career as a security officer and in law enforcement. Your date of birth is will be asked also and will be tracked also. Your addresses. Now, a lot of people don't think this is really important. They want to give PO boxes and stuff like that, but your correct address is very important for mailing of last checks and stuff like that, and for any healthcare benefits that are coming your way, or uniforming equipment that may be delivered to you, right? So sometimes we deliver, so if we don't have anything in stock, a lot of times your company will deliver that uniform and equipment to your address that you have on file that you then have to sign for. So if we don't have your correct address, which is your responsibility to keep up and to give to us, and that merchandise goes somewhere else, then you could be held liable for that. Your telephone numbers and cell phone numbers is a crucial part. A lot of times when we're talking about scheduling, when we're talking about different events coming up, like and things like that, the office personnel and your supervisors may be trying to get a hold of you via telephone. Now, I know no one today probably even has a landline at home, but certainly you'll have a cell phone number that that supervisor can be able to get a hold of you on. All right. Email addresses are very important also, because a lot of times if we can't reach you on cell phone, home phone, a lot of times things are sent in email form also. And some of our systems, it will track, once you read that email, it'll say confirmed on our end. That way we know that the employee got the email also. Your social security number, for payroll purposes, for insurance purposes, for background check purposes, uh, uh, your social security number will be implemented in the system, and it will be tracked also. So if there's any type of criminal things that come up when you are employed and things like that, it's your responsibility to let the company know that, hey, I have an issue that we may need to sit down and talk about here. All right. So everything is tracked by your social security number, your driver's license number, and stuff like that. Your expiration date on your driver's license. The reason why we're asking for that is because if you're driving one of our company cars, or if we're delivering like a money run or something like that, per our insurance, we have to have all this information. And when your driver's license expired, we have to make sure that that's updated in the system and stuff like that. Your security officer license number, your expiration date for that is very important too, because if you're out here doing security duties and your license is lapsed or expired, then that is a big problem. If you're carrying a firearm and your license have lapsed, and you're pulled over by a police officer and they ask for what we call in Georgia here your blue card, and you don't have it or it's expired, that could be big legal trouble for you, and you don't want that. We talked about your handgun permit and your expiration date on that. We're talking about your nightstick or your PR-24 or your ASS permit also. Some states require that you have a permit for that also. Your pepper spray permit. These are things that your company usually will give to you as employment once you've completed that certification for it. And you have to keep up with your permits and your expiration dates for things like that. Okay. Prior security related experiences. That can be anything from first aid to anything pretty much. So we want to make sure that we keep up with expiration dates as far as that goes also. Your signature and date, you're going to find out, is going to be required on mostly all of your paperwork, and your employee number also, which they don't have on here, which is true. Your employee number also, because this is the way that we know that it's you, and this is the way that we know that you understand and realize what's going on with everything. Uniform and equipment. Most companies will give you your uniforms. They will give them to you probably in stages, because they want to see pretty much how long that employee wants to stay. So one of the things that we found out here at G11 is that we sort of put you through a courting phase, sort of, right? So do we give you, once you're hired on with us, do we give you a uniform that looks like what you see in the picture right there? Probably a good percentage of that, but not all of that, because a lot of these are our class 3 officers, and they're armed, and they have all the equipment, the bulletproof vests, the hats, the everything. So each of these officers, you're probably looking at upwards of $2,500 of equipment that these guys have on. We hire an officer on, and you think your first week of working with us, you're going to get $2,500 worth of our equipment, where you can just go off in a la la land and poof, be gone. That's probably not going to happen. Not unless you're hired for a specific job that requires us to outfit you like that. And then under circumstances like that, we'll do it then. But for the most part, the things that we issue out is your badges, your hats, and in some lobby cases, like if we're hiring you for a lobby job or doctor's office or something like that, we'll issue out blazers, and those come in blue, brown, or gray. Your bloodborne pathogen kits, in case that we're running across injuries on the work site that we have to glove up for, right? Because we don't want to touch blood, carry any bloodborne pathogens or anything like that. Okay, uniform and equipment forms. Another thing that we will issue you also is clipboards. Those will probably be at your job site once you arrive there also. Your coats. So we will issue your coats, the Parker jackets, the bomber jackets, and then your company may issue you a lightweight jacket also. As far as your flashlights, there are about 100 different types of flashlights that your company can choose to go with. That will be at your company's discretion, but mostly here we issue the Stinger flashlights and the flashlight holders also. Your regular winter gloves, it is issued to you also, and your hats. So we use there's several different style of hats. The first one is the 8-point style hat, similar to what you've seen the officers in the first picture wear. And then you have some companies who like the trooper style hat, right? And then you have some companies who don't mind if you wear a baseball hat. Well, here we pretty much issue the 8-point hat, and we do allow some of our officers to wear some ball caps depending on what time of the year it is and depending on what the assignment is. So if you're assigned to a park, where you're patrolling around a park area or something like that, we may allow that particular officer to wear a baseball type of hat, especially if you're going to be on an ATV of some type of sort, things like that nature. Okay. Your key card with photographs on it will be how you get in and out of the buildings, right? Especially at your headquarters there, right? So we want to be very careful if we lose those key cards. We want to be sure to report them to our HR. Yes, after you go through 5 of them losing them, they may ding you with a $5 replacement card fee or something like that. But it's very important when you're talking about the security integrity of your post that you're working or your headquarters that you're at. So we're entrusting you to be responsible with this information that we're giving you. And when you're not responsible for it, someone's got to pay the cost. A lot of times that's passed on to you, the employee. That's just the way that it goes. If you're on a job site and we issue you a key card, and you lose it or keys, then that could be problematic as well also, because a lot of times if we do something like that, that client may want us to rekey the whole building. So if you have a building that you're patrolling and it's 12 stories, if it's 12 stories tall and has 822 rooms that you have access to with that master key and you lose it, now we've got to look at rekeying 822 rooms with the master key, that opens these doors because you lost that key. Now, yes, sometimes they do require us to have key insurance. Sometimes the clients do have key insurance on the keys, but that's not always the case. And sometimes that could fall back on you. So when you're dealing with these keys, make sure that you're getting them, keeping them on your person safely, not just setting them down on the counter somewhere and then forgetting them, because you could be responsible for that also. Your licenses for armed and unarmed, you have to have on your persons at all times. At any given time, you could be challenged by law enforcement, and law enforcement could say, hey, well, we call it here in Georgia as a blue card, and I know that other states have different meetings for them in their states. So if an officer challenges you for your blue card, you have to have this readily available. If you do not have this readily available, you may get treated a certain type of way. Okay, so your responsibility to have it with you. Your security officer pocket manual is very important. That pocket manual usually goes in your left breast pocket or either sometimes your right breast pocket. And what that manual does, it has everything that you'll need to know as far as what to do while you're on duty. Okay, that's very, very important. What you're to do while you're on duty. So in case you can't get a hold of a supervisor and you have a question, you can refer back to that security officer pocket manual. Your nightsticks, your nightstick holders, your radio cases, and your raincoats. Those are imperative things that you have to have with you while you're on duty. Your nightsticks, your nightstick holders is part of your standard issue rise equipment. Now, before we used to issue the very long PR-24s. Now we use the collapsible batons and stuff like that. That could be utilized not for as an impact weapon. It could be if you're defending yourself, but more importantly, if you have to gain entry somewhere in an emergency situation, and you may need to crack a window to gain entry into a certain part of the building or something like that, that is just a downright emergency. You've got to get in there or whatever. Okay. Your raincoat, your raincoat gear, very important, because sometimes we're in inclement weather. You don't know. I know here in Georgia, one minute it's shiny outside and it's beautiful. Next minute it's raining. Next minute it's cold. Next minute it's too hot. So we have to have our rain gear with us at all given time and be prepared for inclement weather when we do that. The shirts that your security department issues. So we'll issue you a long sleeve shirt with a tie. So anytime that you are in a long sleeve shirt, Class A long sleeve shirts, you have to have your tie on. There are some exceptions to where we will allow you to wear a dickie under your long sleeve shirts. It depends on the client. It depends on the look that the client wants. Most of the clients don't mind whether you wear a tie or a dickie under there, but it would just depend on that client in your job, in your security company. So long sleeve shirts with a tie. Short sleeve shirts do not require a tie. You are not permitted to wear a tie with a short sleeve shirt. All right. So if you're wearing short sleeve shirts, you do not have a tie on. If you're wearing long sleeve shirts, then you have a tie on, of course. Okay. Your department will issue you your tie. Now, your trousers and your uniform, some security companies like the black trousers, some like the blue trousers, some like the tan trousers, some like the gray trousers. It depends on what that particular client wants on their job site, because a lot of security companies will provide that to the client. Your uniform receipt, after you are issued your uniform, you're going to have a receipt that's given with all the uniforms that you received on that sheet. It is your responsibility, and only your responsibility, to make sure that every item on that uniform sheet is returned back to your prospective company. If not, you may be on the hook for paying for that. So every company that is employing you, that money had to come from somewhere to buy that equipment, and they're giving it to you in good faith, knowing and hoping that you take care of it like you bought it. And when it is not brought, taken care of, or returned in the same condition, other than normal wear or tear, you may be held responsible for that. So a lot of the uniform equipment sheets that you'll fill out will state that hey, I'm responsible for this piece of equipment, whether it's a firearm and someone breaks in your car and take it, or whether it's a bulletproof vest that you wash in the washer machine and ruin it, or whatever. You're responsible for that equipment, and it should not be taken lightly. Your job qualifications. You got to understand something, that this is just not a job. It's a serious responsibility. As a member of security, you will be entrusted with critical tasks that you have to complete that demand high levels of professionalism. Again, when I tell you that you're going to be protecting thousands, millions, and in some cases billions of dollars worth of equipment, it's very, 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 very serious job that we're in here. And again, understand something. We can't put you on these jobs without vetting you. We'll take the hiring process very seriously, like we talked about before. Be advised, your company will conduct a comprehensive vetting process, asking detailed questions and taking a deep dive into every applicant's background. And only those who meet the rigorous requirements of their security firms is going to be selected for the job. Security is no longer where we just get a warm body off the street and we put them at a job site and say, hey, you have security. Because what we found out is when you do that, that security officer could have a background. He could have criminal, sexual background, criminal background, unethical background, the things that we should know about as a security firm before we put you on one of our clients' job sites. That client is entrusting the company to do their due diligence on you. And if it's any type of a company, they will do their due diligence on you. They will do their due diligence on you. Okay. Security officers must understand this here is that your agency, who you work for, is your primary responsibility, not the client. All right. You don't work for the client. You work for ABCD Security Company. So you should never even talk to a client, not unless it is expressly directed to you from your security office to do so. Other than that, you could be in a world of trouble by doing that. So you never, ever, ever want to talk to a client or befriend a client that is related to your security company, because things can go sideways very, very, very quickly. Because if you guys are now buddy buddy and you're out having a beer and y'all get into a fight and you sock this client in the mouth, well, you think you're going to be able to show up there the next day and continue working? No, probably not. So it's probably a good idea to keep it 100% professional while you're on duty. If a client does try to make contact with you, make contact with your company and say, hey, just want to let you know that client ABC is requesting this. They want me to do this. Is that okay? And get clearance from your company. So your first priority is your agency, is your first priority. That's who is going to give you your check. Okay. You must be 18 years of age. You have to be an adult to work security in just about any of the states that are out there. You have to be a legal adult to work in security. One of the things that we're going to look at is we're going to look at your educational background, right? High school diploma or equivalency. Can you read and write the English language? All right. Pass a criminal background check and examination. Pass a drug screening test and examination. Physically able to perform the job descriptions. Be able to deal with the general public. That's a big one because that's exactly what we'll be doing. Be able to pass a state license required examination. You'll find out that you have to do that with an 80% or better. Have a valid driver's license at all times. Be able to walk and stand for long periods of time. Be able to adapt to shift work. Pass a physical examination when paid for and required by the company. Okay, so these are all key factors that you're going to have to do as a security officer here, and I want to highlight and touch on just a couple of them, just really, really, really quick. Passing a drug test when you're first hired on does not exclude you from future drug tests. So a lot of companies have lottery systems to where if your employee number comes up this week, you may be pulled in for a drug test. If they do the lottery next week and your employee number comes up again by some dumb luck, you're going to be pulled in again to do a drug test. If you're involved in some type of mishap at work, a use of force, accident while on duty driving, in a golf cart, on a bicycle or something like that, you may be required to take a drug test all over again, because the drug test is one of the things that the insurance companies are going to look at to see if you were fit for duty when doing your job. Being able to stand for long periods of time is a crucial part of this job. A lot of times, especially if you're working concerts or if you're working special detail events and stuff like that, a lot of times we're standing. So you know to wear comfortable shoes, you know to make sure that you know your socks are the correct kind of socks and all that other good stuff, because we may be standing for long periods of time. High school diploma or equivalency and being able to read and write the English language, that is just without saying right there. We're not saying that you have to be a scholar. We're not saying that you have to have a college degree or anything like that. But what we're saying is that you do have to have a high school diploma or equivalency, and you have to be able to read, write, and understand the English language. Not to say that we don't prefer you speaking Spanish or anything like that. That is a plus. Absolute, that is a plus. But you must be able to write and speak the English language also. Past criminal background examinations. One of the things that we're going to look at is, okay, if you have been arrested before, what were you arrested for? Was it a misdemeanor? Was it a felony? Okay. Was it you going into your local quick pick and stealing $10,000 worth of merchandise? Or was it something that you did that was, stupid when you were, 17, 18 years old and stole a piece of bubble gum from the local convenience store, right? And maybe that was 20 years ago, right? So these are some of the things that we look at on a scalable basis while we're looking at your background and stuff like that. We understand that life happens, and we do understand that people grow and change also, but you have to understand that the position that you're hired to do, you have to have high moral ethics and a good background for it. And that's the reason why we require that you pass the drug test. We require that you be physically able to perform the job and descriptions, be able to deal with the general public, and be able to pass a state license required examination. When you're dealing with the general public, we understand that sometimes they can push your buttons, but what you have to do and understand is that as a professional security officer, you always have to maintain your calm and your poise also. You have to have a valid driver's license. Now, this is this is a workaround, okay? Because there are some job sites that don't require you to drive while you're on duty. There are some job sites to where, let's say, if something happens and a child support issue gets in the way and your license gets suspended, well, it's upon you to let us know as the company that, hey, boss man, whatever, my license got suspended for child support. Now, there's a variety of things that we can do. All right, number one, we can still keep you employed. We can send you home that day. But more importantly, probably more than likely, what we'll do is we'll put you on a site that does not require you to drive. Okay. We have plenty of sites to where you can sit at a desk. We have plenty of sites to where you don't have to drive a vehicle to do that. Right. We have some sites that are inside of office buildings and stuff like that that you can catch the bus to. There's a variety of different ways. But the key there is you have to let us know that information. If you don't let us know that information and you're caught driving one of our vehicles and your license is expired or suspended or something like that, then that is a terminatable offense. We talked about being able to walk for long periods of time. That's just part of the nature of our job. If you don't like walking, if you don't like standing for long periods of time, then this may not be the job for you, because we do what our clients ask us to do. Be available and adaptable to shift work. So everything is not just 9 to 5 here. A lot of these are working weekends, holidays, and regular hours, overnight shift and stuff like that. So if you're having babysitting problems or something like that, communication is the key. A lot of times your supervisor can work with you as long as it's not an ongoing issue. A lot of times these supervisors are great guys and they can work with you on these issues as far as your babysitting issues, your car broke down. Now understand this, mama or father can only die one time, right? So if you come with a lot of crap like that, well, my dad died or my mama died and they just died last week too, then here we go. That could be a big problem for you. All right. So we're going to always, your firm, your security firm should always be on a straight and narrow with you, and you should always be on a straight and narrow with them. We talked about passing a physical examination also. Conditions of employment. Now, all officers have a right to quit at any given time. All right. Especially here in the state of Georgia, in anywhere, you have a right to be able to pretty much come and say, you know what, hey, that's it, I'm done, I quit. Right. We don't like that. We prefer that you give a 2-week notice. But it is not law that you have to give a 2-week notice. If you ever want to get rehired back on that specific firm or on that security firm that you work to, it is preferred that you give a 2-week notice and do things in decent order. Although the law does not require it. You can say, hey, I'm done, I quit, whatever. Okay. That is not the preferred way to do it. I will say that. On the other hand, similarly, any officers can be terminated at the discretion of the company anytime. We don't have to give you a reason. We can just say, hey, this isn't working out. Sayonara, take care, turn in your equipment, and we'll get you your last check and stuff like that. So understand something, that's a two-way street also. This does not reduce or disqualify you from unemployment compensation benefits. So if you've been here 5 years and we let you go, you can still go down to unemployment and get your unemployment benefits and stuff like that. All right. So, but in retrospect to that, if you've been here a week, don't think that you're going to be able to go down to unemployment or just work a couple of weeks and get entitled to unemployment benefits for, the next 6 months or whatever. It doesn't work that way. So our chain of command that we deal with here in any security company or in any law enforcement company is going to be sort of similar to this here. It's going to be at the bottom, if you see where it says security officer, that will be you, right? Yeah. Whether you're experienced security officer or whether you're brand new and first day on a job security officer, it's going to be you. So you're going to be the first line of defense right there. If you have a problem on your day-to-day activity or whatever, then your next in your chain of command will be your supervisor, your immediate supervisor, that corporal or that sergeant that has been assigned to you. And your security firm should let you know who that is, right? While you're doing, when they're doing the schedule and stuff like that. A lot of them break them up: A shift, B shift, C shift, D shift, and so on and so forth. And over each of those shifts, there's usually a sergeant. And then under that sergeant, there's usually a corporal. So you would probably want to start with your supervisor, your first line supervisor, your corporal, your sergeants, and then it goes up from there. And then it goes up to your if you can't get that answer from your supervisor, then he'll go to his manager, and then that manager will go to the president of the company, and then that president of the company will go to the client that employed that company to work for them and say, hey, how would you like to handle this situation here that happened on your job site here? Would you like us to do A, B, C, D, E, F, or G? And then that client will tell us, and then that information will disseminate down. The client tells the president tells the manager tells the supervisor tells you. You see how that chain of command works? It works going both ways as far as disseminating information. Your schedules. Schedules are issued on usual paydays for the following week. Now, that's not always in stone, even though that's what we teach, but some security agencies can do it 30 days in advance, right? They could do it 6 months in advance. Heck, they could do it a year in advance with some of these technologies and systems that they have out now. But some security companies do it on paydays for the following week so that they can keep a tight grip of that schedule. Officers are always generally going to be hired for a schedule. Generally, we're not going to just hire you and keep you in limbo and just have you come to the office and just do whatever every single day. You're going to be hired for a specific reason, for a specific job. And then as the job that you're to report to, and that is the job that you were hired for. To change a schedule, an officer must request that change 72 hours in advance. Now, generally, it has to be some type of bona fide good reason why you want your schedule changed. If your company has 500 guards and all 500 guards want their schedule changed every week for a specific reason, it will probably be chaos in your organization. That's the reason why we hire for specific schedules. This is your schedule. These are your days off. You need to plan your life according to your days off. We understand that things happen. We understand that emergencies happen and they come up, and we will address those on specific basis. But general, as a rule of thumb, you have to give a 70 or your company 72 hours notice in advance to change a schedule. This is an important one. Telling anyone but management that you can't work is totally unacceptable. You could be put down for a no call, no show and immediately terminated. Okay. So when you're talking about having to miss a shift or something like that, the first person that you want to get onto is your manager or your supervisor, that first line supervisor, and say, hey, I have an emergency. I'm not going to be able to make it in. I've been involved in a car accident. I'll get you a copy of the police report, this, that, the other, or I'm in hospital. I'll bring a doctor's note, or my kid's in the hospital, whatever it is, whatever the emergency situation is, you have to be able to relay that on to your first line supervisor so that they know to enact someone to get out to your job site to cover that job site. Okay. But telling anybody but your management is a big no-no. Telling a coworker, well, I don't think I can make it in tonight. Their job responsibility is not to fill your shift. It's your manager's or your boss's job to fill your shift. So that's not a good person to tell. Follow your chain of command and you should be just fine. Another one is expect to work weekends and holidays, right? So our job is much like law enforcement when it comes to that respect, that we're going to be working weekends and we're going to be working holidays. Generally, the time that our clients are not there, they're usually off on weekends and holidays. That's why they hire us. Company violations, any criminal offenses, current or unreported past that we may find out that comes to our attention. Now, a lot of times, I can't tell you how many girlfriends have called in and said, hey, last night, Bob Smith was involved in a domestic with me and he got locked up. So I'm just letting you know, and blah, 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 and just ratting them out and telling. On those cases, we have to deal with that information. We can't just turn a blind eye to it. So we have to follow that and track that also. Does that necessarily mean that you're going to be terminated? No, it does not. There's a variety of different things that we can do. We have administrative jobs that we could put you on. We could put you helping out in a training division. There's a lot of things, but the thing is you have to be honest and let us know. Carrying an unauthorized weapon while on duty is a big no-no, And we've had to fire people for that before, that, hey, I'm going to this place late at night by myself and I'm going to take my sidearm with me and carry it with me while on duty in uniform. And that is a big no. Now, there's a gray line there because in the state of Georgia, everyone can carry a weapon, but it doesn't apply when you're on duty as a security officer, right? Two total different things. Personally, if you're walking around on your own, yes, you can carry that weapon and you'll be justifiably fine with that. If you're acting in the capacity of a certified security officer and you want to carry a weapon, you have to go through the training, you have to go through the vetting process, you have to go through the insurance requirements and things of that nature. If you carry an unauthorized weapon while on duty, that's almost, I'm for sure, grounds means of termination. I can tell you that right now. Using or possessing illegal drugs, another grounds for termination immediately. We cannot have our officers out there using illegal drugs or possessing illegal drugs. And yes, that includes marijuana. I understand that some people think that marijuana is a harmless drug. How we feel about that as a company doesn't matter, whether it's yay or nay. The point is that you can't do it, right? We cannot we cannot have that on our job sites. We cannot have that in our work environment. If you come to work and you're nose blind because you've smoked weed or been around someone who smoked weed while you're at home or something like that, that is going to be brought to your attention. You will most likely be sent home and drug tested, or you'll be drug tested and then sent home. If your results come back positive, you're going to be fired. If your results come back negative, then you're going to probably get a very stern warning about um, workplace etiquette, grooming, and stuff like that coming to work smelling undesirable like that. Intoxicated while on duty and sleeping on duty, as you can see in the pictures below, is a big deal. If you're caught sleeping on duty, that is for surely almost a terminatable offense, for sure. If you're not guarding the client's asset or property, then what are we doing here? You're being paid to guard the property and assets of the client. If you're intoxicated while on duty, you're not doing that. If you're high while you're on duty, you're not doing that. Okay? If you're doing anything but what you're paid to do, you're not doing that. And this is a real guard that was caught at a mall. It's not one of our guards, but he was caught sleeping on post, and someone just walked around and took a video of him sleeping on post. Now, when this officer woke up, I'm sure by when the supervisor woke him up, what do you think happened to this officer? Terminated immediately. So get your rest before you come to work. Make sure that you get plenty of sleep and things of that nature. Company violations. No call, no shows can only happen one time. And we say that in this line of work that we do. No call, no shows happen one time. You get one chance to do a no call, no show with this company before you're terminated. In our viewpoint, there are no exceptions, not unless that employee is deceased, for a no call, no show. Okay, I will say it one more time. There's no excuse for an employee to do a no call, no show to work. Okay, if there is a family emergency, like I said, we understand that. If mom, dad, sister, kid, brother, cousin passes away, heaven forbid, we understand that life happens. But you have to be able to make that initial call and say, hey guys, I'm not going to be able to come to work today. I have a family emergency, click, and then hang up. I have a death in the family or something like that. Okay. If it's you that are sick, that is sick, you can have a loved one call in and say, hey, such and such is on their way to the emergency room. They fell, broke their leg, whatever. They won't be able to make it in. But to simply do a no call, no show at any point or any stage of this is totally unacceptable. Late for duty. Again, communication is key, right? We understand that, especially here in Georgia and Atlanta traffic is bumper to bumper every single day. It's overcrowded. We have a lot of people here. We understand that. We're going to encourage you to leave out an hour or two before your scheduled shift to make sure that you get there on time so that you're not dealing with tardiness and unexcused lateness and stuff like that. Failing to call to advise the scheduler that you will not report for duty. That's another terminatable offense and a company violation. That's essentially a no call, no show. Continual lateness. Failure or refusal to obey a lawful order and failure to follow post or orders and instructions. So we're going to talk about those for just a little bit also. Continued lateness. We understand that things happen in lives. We understand that. But to continually be late every single day is going to pose a problem for you. You're going to get written up and eventually you'll be walked out the front door right there. Because remember, not only are we depending on you to be to work at a certain time, your coworkers are depending on you to be to work at a certain time also. So, as team spirit, you have to be there for your coworkers also. Just like we're going to enforce it with you, we're going to enforce it to the people who are supposed to be relieving you also. Because nobody wants to get off at 8 o'clock p.m. and don't get off until 9, 10, 11 o'clock p.m. because somebody is running late consistently every day. Failure to or refusal to obey a lawful order. The key word there is a lawful order. If your supervisors give you a lawful order, it is to be followed to the letter of the law. We have a rebuttal process. If you think that the supervisor is telling you to do something wrong, that is not against the law, but you think that you have a conflict of what he's saying or something like that, there are steps that you could take with our hearing board that we've set up to where you can come before a hearing board and voice your concerns. Failure to follow post instructions or post orders is another company violation that you could be employee fined with also. So you want to be sure to always follow your post orientations while you're on site to make sure that you're on point with every single thing that you're doing while you're on that job site. Gross neglect of duty. Gross neglect of duty is something that we will not tolerate here, and no security firm is going to tolerate it because our clients wouldn't tolerate gross neglect of duty. Well, what is gross neglect of duty? That is something to where you're duty bound to do something and you just don't do it. All right. You're duty bound to do something. You're duty bound to check these doors every single night, every hour on the hour, and you opt to just sit downstairs at the front desk on your butt all night long. That's gross neglect of duty. There could be fire going on. There could be something that we could have prevented going on while we're downstairs just doing nothing. Neglect of personal appearance. We talked about this a little bit too. If your uniform is not ironed correctly, if your uniform smells, has a horrible odor to it, or something like that, that could be neglect of your personal appearance, not being clean shaved and groomed and things like that. So we want to make sure that we stay clean shaved and groomed and stuff like that. Are we saying that you can't have a beard? No. What we're saying is we want that beard maintained professionally and trimmed nice and neatly and things of that nature. You have police officers now who are walking around with beards and stuff like that. So that's sort of been a bend in the corner of an acceptable trend now. Okay. Failure to wear proper articles of uniforms and failure to patrol the property. Misuse, damage, and loss of equipment. We talked about that. Incompetency, we talked about that a little bit. You have to be competent doing this job. All right. Leave post without properly being relieved. That's a biggie. If you leave your post without properly being relieved and you're putting your company and that client at great risk. If something happens, fire breaks out, a fight breaks out, or something like that, and you're supposed to get off at 8 o'clock and your relief is not there, and you say, you know what, screw it, I'm leaving anyway, that could put the whole ship at risk of sinking. So that is a company violation, and it will be dealt with as an abandonment of post, which is a terminatable offense. All right. We understand that things happen. We understand that emergency situations come up, but you have to give us a chance as your company or the company that you work for to respond to that situation and to correct it. That means that we may have another person come out and to relieve you, but they have to drive and get there, right? They're not going to just be automatically there. They have to drive and get there also. Items prohibited from bringing to post. Of course, your TV sets. We don't want you setting up no, flat screen on the job and watching Netflix videos all day long. Nor do we want you using the company's or the client's TVs to watch personal videos and movies and stuff like that. For that's not what we're there for. We're there to provide security and to keep an eye out for their goods and merchandise there. AM or FM radios are prohibited too. What we've done in our patrol cars, we've taken and removed the AM FM radios in there because we have problems with some guards blasting the radio to their favorite tunes and stuff like that in our marked patrol car, which just looked unprofessional. So we got an order from above to remove all the radios from the patrol car. And that's what happens when you don't follow the rules and regulations. Everybody suffers. DVD players, MP3 players, personal laptops and notebooks, Blackberries and computers. Now, also understand this here. Um, Personal laptops not permitted while at work. If the company wants you to have a laptop, they will give you one. Trust me. If they want you to have a Blackberry or a notebook or something like that, they will give you one. Don't bring your own. And then furthermore, if something happens while you're on that post and it gets broken, then they're responsible for that. Your client, your company is responsible for that, not you. So your personal laptop is not broken. The company's laptop is broken. Well, if you take it upon yourself to bring your personal laptop there and it gets broken or something like that, the first thing the company is going to say is that you're not even supposed to have your personal laptop with you while you're on duty anyway. No, we're not going to pay for it. All non-company related reading materials and personal video cameras. Now, that's important because sometimes you may have to take pictures of sensitive information. Sometimes our company's trade secrets, maybe, or whatnot. And we don't want those on your phone to where you may accidentally post them online or they get into the wrong hands or something like that. That could be catastrophic to our clients and sites and dealings with them and stuff like that. Items prohibited to bring to post. Um, Digital and film cameras, we talked about that. Parking in personal vehicles in unauthorized spaces. Most of the time, they'll have a space for contract security to park at. Utilize those spaces, all right? Because one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to park in our client CEOs' parking spots and things of that nature. Could leave a bad taste in the mouth. Alcoholic beverages, we talked about that. Newspapers or magazines. Um, we don't want to bring newspapers and magazines and read just for our leisure time and stuff like that. Illegal drugs, we talked about that. Any items that would inhibit the officer from performing their duties. We're there to simply do a job. Period, point blank. Okay. Prohibited conduct and actions while on duty. Habitual sickness without a doctor's note. We talked about that. Using a cell phone for non-emergency personal business. We talked about that also. Impersonating of a law enforcement officer. We're going to talk about that for just a minute here. If you're going around telling people as a security officer that you're a police officer, I will guarantee you this one thing. You are going to be in for a world of hurt when that person records you either by video or by audible saying that you're a police officer and hands it to a police officer when it comes on the scene. 99% of the time, you will be going to jail for impersonating a police officer. So the answer is always no, I'm not a police officer. I'm a security officer with A, B, C, D, E, F, G company. We want to keep it very real as to who we are and what we're doing. Cursing while on post, committing any criminal act while on post, violating companies or clients' rules and regulations while on post, and failing to turn in reports as required and sleeping on duty. We talked about sleeping on duty. I want to go back and talk about failing to turn in reports as required. Back in the day, we would have drop boxes at the client's location that we would take the report, we'd fold it up, and we'd slip it in the drop box. The problem with that sometimes is if it's about, sometimes you may have indicated that maybe the maintenance man had a big party and that he was partying all night long and it disrupted everybody. Well, the maintenance man comes in the morning, he reads your report after you dropped it in the drop box and he crumbles that up and he throws it away or whatever, right? Well, nowadays with the systems that we have, there is no more of that because everything is electronic. We can tell that report whether we want it going to maintenance or whether we want that report going to the owners of the company or whether we want that report going to first line management of that company. We can now tell exactly where we want that report to go to. So when you're failing to turn in your reports and they're expecting them on a daily basis, that's going to be very problematic. In our systems, they have a portal where you can upload it, which will automatically notify your first line direct supervisor that, hey, there is a report that's waiting in a queue for you to approve. Now, once all reports go through a vetting system also, because we don't want you as a rookie officer to just be able to have access to turn in a report to a client, because there's certain things that we want in our reports before they get to our clients' hands. And plus, it's just a vetting process. We want to make sure that everything is spelled grammatically correct. We want to make sure that nothing's in there that should be in there or should not be in there. We want to make sure that maybe it's removed, that it has nothing to do with this situation, right? So we want to make sure that the reports are presentable before they go to our clients. We talked about sleeping on duty, and we showed you the picture of the security officer sleeping. Again, that's going to automatically always be just about a terminatable offense. Required attitude. Nobody likes a grumpy security officer, right? So we always want to make sure that we want to be courteous. And I understand that every day is not a sunshine-filled day. But while we're on duty and we're engaging in the public and with our clients and stuff like that, we don't want them to see us with a bad attitude. We want to be courteous. We want to be honest. We want to be dependable. We want to be knowledgeable. We want to be well-groomed. We want to be impartial. And we want to have discipline about us, okay? We have to be disciplined personally. Doesn't matter how you feel about a situation personally, we have to maintain a business attitude while we're on our client's property. Whether it's a political matter, maybe we're at a presidential, guarding a presidential debate or something like that, and your favorite person didn't win that debate or whatever. We don't want our security personnel going around all bum-faced because our political person that we support personally didn't win. Has nothing to do with the job there. We're there for safety and security for all. So we want to make sure that that doesn't shine through. Your compensation. It's really simple. I have a thing is everybody know what they're paid when they got hired on. Everybody knows what they're being paid when they got hired on. So there are a couple of different things with that. All security officers are paid hourly. Okay. There are some exceptions to the rules. You may be thrown on salary for different job functions and stuff like that. Few far and in between. Mostly all security officers are paid hourly, and that's what you can expect. Full-time versus part-time. A full-time security officer is defined as someone who is hired and scheduled to work 40 hours per week. A part-time security officer is defined as someone who is hired to work less than 40 hours a week. That's the difference between full-time, which entitles you to benefits and stuff like that, versus part-time, which does not entitle you to benefits, which we'll get into here in a little bit. Pay dates. Some companies do weekly pay. They have a certain day per week that they pay you. There's some companies that do every 2 weeks. And believe it or not, there's still some companies out there who do payroll every 30 days. You get paid once a month. Few far and in between, but they're still out there. Pay periods generally, your company could be different, generally run from Sunday to Saturday. Okay? Generally from Sunday to Saturday. Overtime. Any officer who works more than 40 hours will be paid at a rate of time and a half. So anything over 40 hours, you're going to get paid for, generally by law, time and a half. Officers that refuse to work overtime may be subject to disciplinary actions, providing the overtime does not constitute more than 16 hours in a consecutive workday, in a continuous workday. The officer and the agency agrees that the beginning of the the officer and the agency agrees at the beginning of the employment that the officer cannot work overtime. So some type of contractual agreement that you have with your employer that, hey, I can't work overtime, be it A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. I don't know who doesn't want to work overtime, but there may be a situation that comes up like that. Pay raises are usually based off of performance satisfactory. So you do good, um, a lot of companies will reward you with performance pay. Usually pay raises are evaluated every 90 days. It could go as long up to 6 months, or it could come up once a year on your anniversary of continual satisfactory employment. Now, let's talk about that for a second, because I've had officers who've been with us for a while who just are not cutting the mustard and they're just here for a check. Those guys we try to weed out as quickly and as possible and as soon as possible. When we run into situations like that, can they generally expect to get a substantial raise, like an employee who's been here and who's really on their job and really want to be here and doing a great job? No, absolutely, positively not. So my thing is, attitude is everything. And on your yearly performance evaluations, if you have not been cutting the mustard, you're probably going to be let go. Okay. So the way that the pay raises work in security is that it's performed on satisfactorily doing your job and being a good employee. They're evaluated every 90 days. It could be 6 months or it could be up to 1 year. Keep that in the back of your mind. Now, there are some things for incentive pays, which are good news. So if we have a break-in at the quick pick gas station or whatever, and we say, hey, to the officers who are working out there, if you guys find this guy, we're going to give you an extra $50 or $100 on your check and blah, 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 blah. Those are incentive pay. So you're really out there looking for this guy. You're turning over every stone and stuff like that, right? Anniversary date changes when the officer receives a promotion, right? So you get a promotion to a supervisor or something like that, your anniversary date will go from the date that you got promoted as a supervisor to your next anniversary date. An officer is rehired. So you quit, you give your 2 weeks notice, you think you got something better, you get there, find out it's not what you think, the grass wasn't greener on the other side, you want to come back, then your rehire date starts all over again. Or an officer receives an incentive pay, okay? Those will be the reasons why on most cases with most security companies, your anniversary date will change. Your final paycheck. Final paychecks will be mailed via registered mail or deposited via ACH. Now, we haven't mailed a check here in a very long time because we use everything ACH and all that other good stuff. It's just amazing how much times have changed. So once we get all of our equipment back from you, the people from the uniform division, they do a check off. Yep, he turned everything in. We got everything. Here's his last final paycheck versus, whatever deductions you got coming out or whatever. And then this is your line of paycheck. It will be deposited into your ACH account, or some companies may still opt to mail it out to you. After all borrowed uniform equipments have been returned, and after all outstanding financial obligations to the company has been deducted from that pay. That could be sleeping on duty, running late for duty several times, anything that can generate an employee fine will be deducted on that last check. Any employee loans, let's say you got a loan for $200 or something like that, bam, coming out on your last paycheck because you don't have a way to repay us that on an ongoing basis. Holiday pays. Holiday pays is paid basis on contractual understanding with the client. Now, let's talk about that for a second. If we don't, generally speaking, if your company does not contractually is not able to bill for holiday pay, we can't pass the savings along to you or the perks along to you. So if it's contractual base and your company, yes, can bill for that holiday pay or whatever, then yes, we pass it on to you. But that's something that you're going to have to get with your HR department and ask about in every different scenario. Holiday pay is only applicable for officers with more than 90 days of continual employment, full-time and or part-time. Okay. So if you're working more than 90 days with us and it falls on a holiday or something like that, yes, you will be eligible for that holiday pay. If an officer does not work on a holiday, they are not compensated for that day. So it's not just a blanket overall for everybody. So you have to be physically working on that day. Officers only receive holiday pays for the hours that they worked on a holiday that they actually worked. So if you worked 4 hours that day covering in for someone, then you're going to get 4 hours holiday pay for it. If you worked 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, then you'll get it for that day that you worked on that holiday. Holiday pay continuing holiday pay, time and a half for the holiday pay on contract posts. The officer is paid for time and a half if they actually work on that post. We just talked about that. Double time for holiday. So double time for holiday contract post. So if we're able to get double time pay for you for that holiday on certain occasions, you'll get paid double time for that day. Okay. We're always trying to look to up the scale, or your firm should always be looking to up the scale to take care of their officers. Again, with double time pay, it works the same as your holiday pay and overtime pay. You have to work that day. You have to work that actual day on that post. Usually, your company has a list of holidays that they celebrate and that they recognize as holidays. And some of them are, of course, New Year's Day, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving, President's Day, Martin Luther King birthday, Memorial Holiday, Labor Day, and the 4th of July. Okay. Some people may be able to negotiate more with their clients. If the client's feeling generous, they'll do it. If they're not feeling generous, then they won't do it. But these are going to be your federal holidays, to where pretty much if you work on these days that you're going to get holiday pay for those days. Workers' compensation. Workers' compensation officers are covered under their state workers' compensation where the post is located at. So, for example, if your company is a nationally recognized company and you work in the state of Georgia here, and you can't file a Pennsylvania workers' comp claim for the state of Georgia. It has to be within the state that you're working in, right? So let's just say I live in the state of Georgia, but I'm in Pennsylvania doing some work, bona fide security work in Pennsylvania for the company, and I get hurt in Pennsylvania. It will go to Pennsylvania's workers' comp, even though you live in the state of Georgia. Okay. It must be you must report the accident within 24 hours of the occurrence. So this is nothing where you come back from and say, hey, 6 months ago, I got hurt while I was in Pennsylvania, and I'd like to report a workers' comp claim. Well, we can try it, but they're going to probably deny it. So, if you're hurt, report it immediately to your supervisor so we can get the proper paperwork in to the state so that we can start your claim. Make sure that, like what I just said, make sure there's a report that's prepared by your supervisor so that we could report it to the state. Time and attendance. Officers should report to work on time. Officers should remain on duty until properly relieved. We've been talking about this whole segment. Okay. I know it can get challenging. I know it can get frustrating, but understand something. that extra 30 minutes to an hour is not worth your job and everything that you've worked hard for that company and that client for, to lose it all. I know it's a pain in the butt, but you cannot leave until you're properly relieved. If you don't know, then call your supervisor and ask. Okay, because that supervisor may say, you know what, hey, I'm on the way. Okay, that's what he should be saying. Time and attendance. Officers should check on and off duty by calling in a dispatch. Okay, so some security firms has 24-hour dispatch that you have to call in and you have to sign on and off duty with. Using your guard tour system, all right, whether it's Therms that you're using or whatever your company's guard tour system that you utilize to do that with, you check in and out for that. These are verifiable things through geofencing and stuff like that that we can use to track your locations to prove to the client that you were on the job site. Very rarely do we use a time card system, but yes, some places may still utilize a time card system to physically click, click, clock in, click, click, clock out. Okay. Checking on and off duty as post orders required. So be sure to know the checking in and out from your post orders, what you should do and what you should not be doing. Leave. Annual leave is for full-time employees only. After 2 years of service and a 72-hour notice, no sick leave is paid. Emergency leave is non-paid. Family leave is non-paid. Leave without pay is non-paid. And it requires a 72-hour notice if you have to leave in under emergency situation and things like that. Okay. But these are the things that are listed as non-paid. Okay. If you have vacation and you have it set up properly, you've been here long enough and all that other good jazz, and you want to take that, fine. Knock yourself out. That's what it's there for, because we have to plan for that. Hospitalization. Eligible your insurances and stuff like that after 190 days, a continual full-time employment. Officer pay the entire cost through payroll deduction. Upon severance with the company, the officer may pay COBRA, the hospitalization policy, at the officer's expense. Okay, because that's outside expense, not a line item expense, really, that we're budgeting for here. Okay. Life insurance, eligible after 190 days of continual full-time employment with the agency. Agency pays the premium for your life insurance. Upon severance with the agency, the officer may pay COBRA, the insurance policy at the time, but at the officer's expense. So you can keep your life insurance policies up. It can go with you. Very important thing where a lot of officers get jammed up at is having visitors come to post. Officers shall not allow visitors on their post at any given time, not personal visitors, right? Not talking about the people that are coming to conduct business with the client. I'm talking about your aunties, your brothers, sisters, cousins, husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, stuff like that. This includes, but not limited to, relatives, family members, off-duty or other off-duty company officers, pets, or anything like that on a post. It should just be you on that post working. Transportation and transporting security officer to and from the post. A lot of companies have systems set up to where they will come and pick their officers up for those who don't have a vehicle. Maybe your vehicle's down, maybe the engine blew up or something like that. They may have a policy where they'll come and pick you up and drop you off at work. Officers whose vehicles become inoperative may be transported by a supervisor to and from a post, providing that the officer signs a transportation and liability release form, agrees to reimburse the agency for the expense on their next payroll cycle. So it beats catching an Uber, it beats taking the bus there, and all that other good stuff. All right. Again, not a built-in line item cost that we can bill out for. Training and testing. It is imperative that the agency has the following requirements for testing for officers: mandatory 8-hour testing within the first week of employment, state required training, annual state refreshers training. All training should be followed by a test, which requires 80% of the answers to be answered correctly while doing the examination. Okay. So it's very important that your agency make sure that all the testing procedures is in play, and making sure that all of your instructors that instruct these officers are licensed by the state and that they're certified by the state in order to be able to teach this. All right. This will conclude our administration and onboarding portion of this training. Again, my name is Daryl Triplett. I'm your certified instructor, and thank you very much for joining in with us, and we'll see you on the next time. Thank you. Bye.